to you, and welcome to another episode of Community Forum. My name is Steve Fredk, and I'm going to be your host today. And today we are going to be talking about, of all things, kids voting. Kids voting. Can you imagine that? Next thing we'll be talking about kids driving. Well, kids voting actually is an activity that goes on here in Stoughton, has been going on for several years. And what it does is it involves all of the school children in Stoughton prior to and on election day to help teach them something about the political process, about who's running, why they're running, why to vote for them or not to vote for them, how the system works and so forth, and then they actually get to vote on election day. But we're going to learn a lot more about that as we talk to our guests tonight. Our guests, to my left, your right, Pat Basler, who is the volunteer chair of Kids Voting, and she's also the library director. And in her spare time, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I'm the volunteer coordinator for Kids Voting.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
That's what I said, yep. And to her left is Nicole Baudet, right?
Yep.
Nicole Baudet, who tells us that her name is Bodette, but it was changed from Beau, right? Mm-hmm. Which means good looking, I guess. I don't know. And Nicole and Daria Musatova,
yep,
whose name is almost impossible to pronounce, but we've gotten used to it by now. And these two people are high school students at Stoughton High School, and they are the student representatives to the Kids Voting Committee. And finally, at the very end, is John Gallivan, who is the high school social studies director, yes, and teacher and longtime committee member.
Correct.
Amongst other things.
Amongst other things.
Okay. Somebody tell me, what is Kids Voting and what is its purpose?
So Kids Voting is a nationwide program that encourages student participation in the voting process. And it's nonpartisan and run by volunteers. And the goal is to hopefully bring more adults into the voting process as well.
So we're using the kids to drag their parents kicking and screaming to the voting poll
Well,
locations.
we're hoping to include the kids in the process so that they'll at least go home and have discussions. It's tied into a school-wide curriculum. We've been doing it here for 9 years. Every other year we do it for either the presidential or the governor's election. And the whole idea is to make it more of a civic conversation.
Mm-hmm. And that conversation takes place not only in the classrooms, but also at home with parents, hopefully. Getting them involved. And, kids are learning about democracy and how the system works. John, you're the historian here. You've been on the committee since since Washington was elected. The kids in Stoughton voted for him. I think Howie Hansen was one of them. How long have we been doing kids voting in Stoughton?
I think I came on board in 2002, but I
think we started in '98.
So I missed the first two.
And it was going on nationally before we picked it up here in Stoughton, is that correct?
I believe so, but we're one of the few, if maybe the only town in the state that has kept it going.
There were several. I know Quincy was one of them.
Plymouth used to.
Plymouth.
Yeah, and a lot of credit goes to the sponsors, and I'm sure we'll get into that later on. Mm-hmm. People that have made donations. But the interesting story is
and the chair.
Yeah, and the chair,
who happens to be my wife.
Of course, we wouldn't have this program without Sharon. That's absolutely true. But at the high school level, we reap the benefit of getting students who, in the case of, like Nicole was saying off the air, that she's been in the Stoughton schools her whole life. Mm-hmm. So every 2 years, maybe it's first grade, third grade, fifth grade, whatever the pattern is, we get students at the high school who have some experience because of kids voting with the process. Mm-hmm. And the kids voting curriculum is part of their civic education. It's not the only piece, but it's a part of it. And we're lucky at the high school level to be able to work with students who have a background, and we don't have to start from scratch with them. So,
now the thought of kids voting obviously brings to mind polling places, But kids voting starts long, long before Election Day. It's already in process right now, as a matter of fact. Tell us where it happens in the high school. It happens elsewhere. Tell us about that.
Well, Election Day is busy, but it's actually easier in some ways than all the other days that lead up to it because of the amount of planning that goes into it. And Pat can talk about all the hundreds of volunteers that a program like this requires. But on Election Day, the students, it's for several elections now, election years, that we haven't had school on Election Day for safety reasons, and so the kids can go to the polls. Yeah, well, there was an incident with an accident where a pedestrian was hit, and plus, with the emphasis on school safety, you don't want hundreds, or on a presidential election year, it could be thousands of people coming in and out of a school all day long, and it's just it's just not safe. So the schools are closed.
You have to Cory check every one of them.
It would be expensive and it would be time consuming. So the students can vote at the polls from any time after 2 to when the polls close.
And we'll post that information as we go along. You mentioned expensive. I know that we don't have to Cory everybody, but it's expensive to run kids voting, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there are some costs. The ballots cost money, and the ballots look almost exactly like what they're going to see when they're 18 years old and they vote for real, except that the major difference is that we put pictures of the candidates on there so that the students can identify with some of the candidates that maybe they've seen on TV.
I hold in my hand the ballot, the kids' voting ballot. I don't know if you can get in close to that and take a look at it, but this is the ballot from 2012. The ballots for 2014 obviously haven't been printed yet. But you can see that it's just like the ballots that we use for the adults, except that there are pictures of the candidates on here as well as their names and other information. But they're completed exactly the same way. They fill in a little oval, just like we do when we vote ourselves. And how are these votes counted?
Well, we have volunteers who work at different polling sites, and as the day goes on, the ballots are collected and they're returned to our little sort of makeshift headquarters at Town Hall, and we actually use a vote counting machine just like they do at all the polling places. So we're able to slide them through and get numbers very, very soon after the polls close.
So basically, the kids who are involved in this get a real, true life experience at the polls.
Yeah, it's look, I live in a town that doesn't have kids voting, and one year I went to vote, my kids were with me, and someone said, "Oh, your kids can vote too." And I thought that was nice, but there was no curriculum piece to go with it, so they had no idea what they were voting for, or who they were voting for, or how, they were young, they were 3rd or 4th grade. But I know that in Stoughton, with the program that we have, there's curriculum for all the grades. So a kindergarten classroom is going to do a kids voting activity. A 9th grade world history classroom is going to do a very different activity, but when they show up, there's some substance to it. It's not just pick a random picture of a person and get a sticker and walk away.
Tell us about that curriculum. Are you involved in developing it? Where does it come from?
It comes from the National Kids Voting Organization, and to be honest with you, there's enough curriculum that we could just teach kids voting all year long. We obviously can't do that with everything else.
Why can't we? No, I'm serious. Why can't we teach more about civics and about the political process and governmental process to kids? I mean, I know many people who are adults who have absolutely no idea how the system works. They don't. If you said general court to them, they would say, "What's that?"
Right.
If you ask them who are their selectmen, they have no idea. Some people, if you ask them who their state senator is, they have no idea.
Right.
Why can't we teach more of that in school?
Well, it's probably a topic for another show, but the bottom line is that in 30 years of public education, every year it seems that there's been more added to the plate of you have to teach this, you have to teach this, you have, different standards, and the
There's only so many hours in the day.
MCAS came in the 90s, and now there's the Common Core and the PARCC testing, and every year they're adding more and more and more. One of our goals in social studies is to produce civic-minded citizens, and with or without kids voting, we would be trying to do that with kids voting, and we're fortunate to, all the staff in the Stoughton High School Social Studies Department, we're fortunate to teach in a town that has supported kids voting, because so many towns used to have it and have let it go.
How are the teachers trained for this? I know we're concentrating a lot on what's going on in the school, but that really is the first step in kids voting.
Well, in years past, we've actually had a teacher training day where we've shown them the curriculum that kids voting has provided, and talked to them about ways that they can use that in their own classroom. But we feel like so many of the teachers have been doing this for so many years that they've kind of got it. So we provide them with access to the kids voting curriculum. There's a website that they can go to and a password to get into it, and they can pull from there what they think will work best with their kids.
Our students, Daria and Nicole, what has kid voting meant to you? One at a time. You don't have to answer together.
I mean, I've been in Stoughton my entire life, so kids voting for me has always been something fun to do with my parents on election day. I really look forward to it because I have a younger brother and we go together and do it, and it's fun to kind of secretly talk about, oh Mom, I can't tell you who I voted for. But for the most part, it's always been something I look forward to. Also, when you go into school the next day, it's fun to see which of your friends have voted, and it's kind of a topic of discussion as kids, but we really, with the curriculum, we know that it does mean something more than just going to the polls and voting.
Have you learned, in your opinion, a lot about the system and how it works?
Yeah, well, it gives you this real life experience of voting, so it's definitely something that other kids in other towns don't have access to that experience, so I think it's valuable.
You know how the primary system works and how the government puts it all together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff we learn.
In Washington, every now and then they do something.
Yeah, we learn a lot in history class that's kind of applicable to our kids voting experience, and it might not be all geared towards the kids voting, but it does all intertwine together.
Makes you an informed voter,
yes.
which a lot of adults aren't. And in Congress, I think that's kids voting all the time, the way they behave.
Yeah, I do think that we're very fortunate to have a town that supports kids voting. I know that I moved to this town in 6th grade, and when I was younger, in elementary school, my town didn't have kids voting, and I knew that I would go to the polls with my dad, and I'd always ask, can I go with you? Can I see it? And I wasn't allowed to. So that when I moved to this town and I heard that I could vote myself too, I was very excited to be able to participate in something that so many adults get a chance to do.
You should have been allowed to. A voter is allowed to bring a person to help them.
My dad was always like, no, you can't see who I'm voting for. So when I was able to vote, like Nicole said, I can't tell you, you didn't tell me.
That's a whole nother story. And now, what do you each do at the high school for kids voting? Do you do anything, or do you just sort of wait for election day?
Well, this year we were...
And remember that my wife is probably going to be watching this show.
Last year, Mr. Galvin told us about the awesome opportunity to be part of this committee. So this year we've had a lot more experience in the behind the scenes what goes around with kids voting, but until this year I had no idea what was going on. This year we have meetings a lot, and me and Dari have actually been working on a presentation to go to the elementary schools and tell them about what kids voting is and why it's important.
Now, the elementary schools also have a curriculum?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. They do. So they're teaching...
It's a K through 12 curriculum.
K through 12.
But
kindergartners are probably going to know a lot about...
they will when we're done with them.
who to vote for.
They made a really great PowerPoint present. Well, was it PowerPoint that you used?
Prezi, same thing, yeah.
It's like a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to bring to every elementary school, have the kids be in the auditorium and give them like a 20-minute sort of participatory. Talk about that a little bit, because it really does.
You're going to get 6-year-olds to sit and watch something for 20 minutes?
Well, it asks
It's very
them-
interactive.
It's interactive, and it's very
Yeah.
cool. It actually asks them, well, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're going to come in and we're going to talk to some of the kids and how they probably are always see their parents coming in to vote, and how now they can do the same thing that the adults do. They can act just like grown-ups and participate in their community, and we're just going to talk to them about how not everyone gets a chance to vote, especially kids, and that they're fortunate that in this town they are allowed to, and why voting is important, and that even at such a young age they can learn how to become more involved in their communities.
I remember when one of my grandchildren was very little, and I introduced him to Senator Brian Joyce and explained to him what a senator does. He makes laws. And in a few minutes, Brian puts a campaign sticker on my grandson. And my grandson looks at it and says, "I don't make any laws." How important is it to be informed, an informed voter? I mean, as I said before, there are a lot of adults who aren't informed, who
Right.
really, adults who will vote for somebody based on the person's name or the person's color or religion, and a number of other things as well. How important is it to be informed? Do you find yourself looking at the political TV commercials with a different viewpoint? And do you say to yourself, "Hey, that's not true"?
Yeah, obviously as we get older, and I'm still considered a kid, but when I was little, there would just be annoying interruptions to my cartoons, but now it's more like I do take a look at commercials because, one, it's important, like you said, it is important to be informed, and it's definitely something that it makes you think more about your decisions, and even though this kids voting doesn't directly make who the adult population votes for, it's important to my population as a child.
Yeah, I think it's important for kids to understand that they have to be informed to be able to make an informed decision about, voting for someone that would make a positive difference in their community, and not just someone, "Oh, I like their hair." Like, it's someone that's got policies that can actually improve the way they live in their own town or something like that.
Yeah, and also at the high school level especially, we do voting quite often during the school year for not only student council representatives, but also class officers. And so voting isn't a foreign thing to us, but it's definitely it's more important to know your candidate to be class president, what they're going to do, and that's also a thing that you need informed decisions to make.
Do you think the kids' voting experience has changed the nature of school elections? You just mentioned class president. And when I was a kid in high school, I ran for a couple of things too, and actually got elected. Last time I think I did get elected. Do you think that it has changed that process? Do you think that the kids running for class president and whatever are more realistic in their campaigning, or more serious in their campaigning, or is it just same old, same old?
Yeah, definitely some things that people run for are more serious than others. So if you're running for president, as compared to, we have representatives at school, which is a more open kind of position, but there are some people that it's important for them to take it very seriously, and I think kids voting gives them an idea of why it's important and how they can go about running for a position seriously.
Now, if either of you, or both of you, she told me before I should address you as a group because you're both students, but I think you're old enough to be individuals. If you ruled the world, how would you go about making the adult population as voting literate as you guys are? Do you think that? It would be nice, because maybe we could get a better class of candidates.
Well,
And voter.
Yeah, well, certainly
voter.
our town is fortunate to have the curriculum in our schools, but it would also make more informed adults as children, as they age, if a lot more schools had this opportunity for kids voting curriculum.
Did your parents, were they both active voters before you got involved in kids voting?
Yes.
I would say so, yeah.
Yes.
So your involvement doesn't necessarily mean that you're dragging them kicking and screaming to the polls.
No.
No, but for I think that's another benefit of kids voting, that it introduces more parents to the voting process through their children.
Considering only like 50% or less of people in our nation that actually vote, even though so many more people have the opportunity to, that kids voting can, in a way, end up bringing parents who might just be going for their kids and end up voting as well, because the more people we have vote, the more accurate results are. And
In your experience, do you find that the kids are generally in favor of the kids voting, or do they make fun of it, or do they put it down, or do they complain about it?
Definitely in favor. Definitely in favor, because one, it's fun. It's not a tiring process. You don't really need to you obviously do mental preparing beforehand for it, but not like sitting down and studying it. But also a lot of teachers offer extra credit for it.
Really?
So that's always a great thing. If
Extra
you bring in
credit
your
is always
sticker,
yeah,
extra
no,
credit
it
in
allows
class.
kids to form their own opinions, and I think that's exciting for them to be able to say what they want to say without having like some parents like
So
censoring them or
they're
something.
not going around griping, oh, not this again.
No.
And actually, the first year we started it, the school system donated free ice cream sandwiches or Dixie cups or something. So the idea was everybody from K to 12, if they voted, you got a little sticker that said, kids voting, I voted. You brought that into school the next day, which we still give the stickers out. But the schools couldn't afford to give them the free ice cream, so now they get a homework pass or something that's probably more valuable as you get older. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Except that kind of etches away into your education, doesn't it?
Everything does a little bit. John, were you going to talk a little bit about how kids voting started?
Yeah, I was, while you were talking to the girls about that, there's a cute story about the guys that founded the program. They were from Arizona or New Mexico, and they were on a fishing trip down in Costa Rica, and they happened to be there on a national election day, and they were shocked to see that the whole country shut down, and the voter turnout was in the 80th
I think it was
percentile,
92% or something.
ridiculous.
Oh my God.
And the children were allowed and encouraged to participate with the parents in some sort of a junior voting program. And when these guys came home, they said, geez, wouldn't it be great if we could start something like this in the United States? So it's kind of a grassroots program that's geared towards building a base knowledge, but also an excitement about the whole process. And it's hard for us in Stoughton because we are just one small town that's trying to run a program for the students in the town. If you look,
It's not just trying to run a program, it's very successfully running a program.
right, and to keep it going,
On a
which is
shoestring.
a great story in itself. But if you look at some of the websites of the programs in the Midwest, where everything's more county-based, and there's, instead of one high school, there's 14 high schools in the county, and there's 50 middle schools, and there's 500 elementary schools, and they have some amazing, huge programs. One school system, or one county in Wisconsin, actually has a mock nominating convention, and they go through the whole
wow.
process. But there's so many people involved that it's on a much bigger scale. We do what we can with the limited support that we get. We're very grateful for the support that we get.
I wonder how realistic that convention experience is. It's an incredible, for those of us who have been to conventions and participated in them, it's an incredible experience in democracy. It really is. An exciting, I call it the party for the party when I go, because it's just that kind of, to me, very thrilling.
Yeah. Well, there's an old, I forget what historian said it, but he was writing about the age of Jackson and the threat to democracy, and he said that there's two ways to destroy a democracy. One is to overthrow it, which is probably the one that most people think of, and the other way is to make it irrelevant. And
to ignore it.
If your vote doesn't matter, or if you're voting and you don't know why you're voting, or how you're voting, or who you're voting for, then what's the point? So hopefully we've changed a few minds, both the younger minds, and if they brought their parents, and if they talked about it at the dinner table, that's great. So.
And I wanted to add, we have a very diverse population in Stoughton. One of the great things about kids voting is there could be families, there's 17 languages represented at the high school, so it's quite a diverse group. So there could be instances where a child actually learns about kids voting at school goes home and talks to their parents who came from a country where they didn't have the right to vote, or it wasn't allowed or safe, or all of that. So it really is another way to educate people who may not have been exposed to that in the past.
The other thing, Steve, is the transition from kids voting to real voting. And at the high school, we're fortunate to see students who turn 18, and they turn 18 before the deadline for voter registration. So we try to encourage them to actually, we provide the paperwork and get them signed up so that, 2 years ago they were a kid voter, and in November they'll be a real voter. So we
Now,
have
one of the things that is on several of the things that are on this year's ballot are ballot questions.
right.
There are 4 of them, does the kids voting deal with the ballot questions at all?
Some, not all. We try to pick one or two that would have the most interest amongst, we have a pretty wide target audience, K through 12. So this year we chose the question on the bottle bill, and we're having a program on October 10th where we're going to have 2 speakers come in, and a pro and a con on question 2, and we'll have probably 110 high school students in a fairly tight quarters, but for about an hour and a half we'll let both sides kind of throw their stuff at the group, and the kids will get to see what it won't be nasty, it won't be like the Jerry Springer show, but they'll hear both sides of the argument. And like I said, at the end, for those that are turning 18 or have turned 18, we'll have all the paperwork, and they can become registered voters.
And what are the details on that? What the day is? The date?
The date of the program
Yes.
is Friday, October 10th.
Friday, October 10th, and
Yeah.
it's the high school kids. It's not for the general population.
No,
No.
it's
No.
it's like I said, like we can't even have the whole. We don't want to do it in the auditorium or the gym. We want it to be a more an environment that would encourage the students to get involved as well, and so there'd be some questions and answers.
Or have it in the kitchen. Now, you were looking at the information on, Dario, you were looking at the information on the bottle bill before we went on the air. Did you learn anything?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I can say that I have an exact opinion on whether or not I would vote yes or no, but I do think that it would be most relatable to high school students with just, I don't know, athletes or anyone. Just everyone drinks water. Everyone has water bottles. I see them all the time. I have like 18 in my room right now, so I just think that it's most relevant to our age.
Yeah, we were part of the decision to make it make the speakers come to our high school and speak to the high school kids about this, because we think that most of the other questions aren't really relatable to our high school experience in the
Yeah, well,
in the
this
past.
definitely will be. You'll be
3
paying a lot of
years.
extra nickels if the bill passes. But you'll be getting all those nickels back.
Yeah.
One of the things that people don't realize about that bottle bill is that people throw away bottles. They throw away bottles all the time, and you see them on the sides of the roads. But if you look closely, you will see that the ones that have 5-cent deposits on them are gone, because somebody picked them up and traded them in for nickels. There are people out there who live on that money. But the ones that do not have deposits on them, like the water bottles, the juice bottles, they're there. And that's what this law, one of the things this law will change. It'll improve the environment. Talk to me about volunteers. Now you've got committee member volunteers, and then you've got other volunteers. Let's talk a bit about them.
So the other volunteers are the people that we need just for the day of kids voting. So the election is Tuesday, November 4th from, for kids voting, it'll just be from 2 in the afternoon till 8 at night. The town currently is set up with 8 polling places in each of the 8 precincts. And basically they're in all of the schools in town.
2 of them are in one location.
The Gibbons has 2 polling places. I think that's precinct 4 and 5 maybe. The West, the middle school, the Daub, the South School, the Jones. Who am I missing? Hanson. So that means we need volunteers. So this is kind of a difficult task. It's a very difficult task for the town clerk, Amy Summers, who has to manage the actual vote. But since we're trying to mirror that, we have to actually have I need almost 100 volunteers.
Now, the town next to us in Sharon, they vote all in one place.
Well, we do that in Easton as well. We
Yeah.
do it at the high school, and they have a separate entrance, and the parking lot's just for voting, and it works very, that's a decision the town would have to make.
Yes.
This is why John and I like that national voting day that they have in Costa Rica, because they do it on a Saturday or a Sunday. It was a weekend day. The whole country basically goes out and votes, and it's a holiday. It's, you have the day off, and you make that part of your important part of your day. Anyway, so we will be having a training on Thursday, October 23rd from 6 to 7 at the first floor of Town Hall. I don't know if you want to put that up there.
It
You
is.
have it up there, great. And so that will be run by the town clerk, Amy Summers, and she will just give people the basic guidelines for being part of a polling place. You can't show up and wear a T-shirt that supports any one candidate. It has to be a very neutral, partisan space. No posters on the walls that have any opinions on anything.
And the Kids Voting Organization is very careful about maintaining its nonpartisanship.
Exactly.
My
Yeah.
wife is constantly after me because I have a sign in our front lawn for somebody, and
Yeah, no, we are
she doesn't want to do that.
completely nonpartisan. But the nice thing about it is I get return volunteers, every 2 years. People will just email me or call up and say, are you doing that again? My daughter and son and I want to do it. So it really becomes a family event. So I probably have 30 volunteers signed up. I probably need another 60. A lot of people will show up at the training.
Mm-hmm.
One of our partners is Randolph Savings Bank, and they usually have enough employees who volunteer to help cover the Jones School, say, for the afternoon.
They don't give out free samples, though, do they?
No free samples of cash. And then the Stoughton Youth Commission runs a Youth Advisory Council, YAC, run by Melissa Barbosa, and she generally has the teens from that group. A lot of them will volunteer to help run the middle school. So those are 2 locations that I probably have covered. But if you want to come out and volunteer, it's a great, fun experience. People who do it just love to see the excitement in the kids' face when they're actually, getting their. We ask their name so we can cross their name off a list, and then they get their ballot. They go to a little cardboard kids voting booth. They fill in the dot just like their parents do, and then they come back and they put it in a makeshift ballot box, and it's a nice experience for them, and it's
So they don't feed it into the counter themselves.
We've only got one extra counter, and that's in the basement of Town Hall. So that's why every 2 hours volunteers will leave their voting location, bring them back to Town Hall, and then John and I and a couple other people stand there and feed in the ballots.
Now, I have volunteered on Election Day, and I got to tell you, it is exciting
It is.
to watch these, especially the little kids.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, you guys are already grown-ups. But to watch these little kids and the expressions on their face, they really feel
Yeah.
like they're doing
It's
something
thrilling for
important.
them. It really is.
And but what about the other volunteers? You say you got an awful lot of volunteers. You need 60 more in addition to the 40 you've got. That's 100 volunteers.
We do 2 2-hour shifts, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8 at 8 locations.
Yeah.
And you generally need 2 to 4 volunteers for each shift.
And what do people get out of volunteering? Why do they do it? Why this rather than, say, the farmer's market or something else?
Well, the nice thing about this is you sign up for 2 hours and you're done.
Uh-huh.
You get to experience something that's really pretty unique, and you feel like you're a part of the community because you're helping to promote democracy. And a lot of parents love doing it because they want to encourage good voting habits with their children.
Mm-hmm.
So that, but I have people who have actually, we've been doing it since 1998, and I have some people that volunteer every time we have an election. So they get a lot of personal gratification out of it.
You got a lot of support from businesses in town as well.
We do. Well, we have Randolph Savings Bank as a partner. Both the downtown branch and the Cobb's Corner branch, I think, will be sending volunteers. We have Malcolm and Parsons Insurance Company in the center of town. David Parsons and now his sister Amney have been great financial supporters.
Now, David has been volunteering for things for a long, long time.
He was a
until he
great
passed
man.
away.
Yeah. We miss him. He was wonderful. We have the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce, as they help us advertise it and get volunteers, and if we need any, we're short on any food supplies, they're always very helpful. Terry Schneider's a big help with the chamber. I don't
Terry
have.
Schneider, we call him Mr. Stoughton.
He is.
He is involved in everything. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he runs his business.
He really is. I'm trying to think of who our other sponsors are. I feel like I'm missing some people. I can't think of any right now. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's okay.
Yeah.
If there are business people watching and you would like to contribute, do they contact you?
They actually could contact me and I will refer them, or they can make a check out to Kids Voting and send it care of Sharon Fradkin's address.
22 James Avenue, Stoughton.
How did you know that?
That's amazing. I visit her quite frequently.
We did do a really neat thing. We do this every spring where we have a kids voting bookmark contest.
Uh-huh.
And then the winners, so we have 10 winners.
Did you bring any of those bookmarks
I
with
didn't.
you?
That's what I was
I
looking
should
for.
have. I
Yeah.
had samples at home.
They're all distributed out at the schools and at the library now. But so 10 young people won the bookmark contest, and then they were
Out of many submitted, right?
over 100, yeah, all ages, and they just have to promote voting as a, promoting democracy and all that. And then Sharon does this wonderful thing where she gets the children and their parents to get acknowledged at the beginning of town meeting in May. So there's a lot of press and photos and all that. It really is a nice event.
And the bookmarks are readily available throughout Stoughton.
That's right.
And they every year I take all the winning bookmarks and scan them in and set them up for printing, and they print, several thousand of them.
Oh yeah, we had Standard Modern, Fowler Printing had been our partner for years, and now Standard Modern is, and they print them up for us for no cost.
Nice.
And yeah, they do.
I know the people at Standard Modern; they're good people.
They do a great job, and they do thousands of them, and we pass them out all spring and summer, and then we have them available at polling sites on Election Day.
And it really is a kick to see them. I mean,
Oh, they're very colorful. They're really
kids who
great.
are 6, 7 years old, and
Yeah.
they're drawing. Based on the kids voting theme,
Yeah.
based on democracy, based on the flag, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It really is. They're exciting expressions of patriotism.
Yeah, it really is a nice process.
And they're good bookmarks too. They're colorful. Okay, let's take a look at and see what we have coming up. We have the kids voting hours. We have a slide on that. There we go. Election Day, Tuesday, November 4th. Polls are open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Kids voting in all precincts, 2 o'clock to 8 p.m. It doesn't start until 2 o'clock, so those of you kids who get up early in the morning, too bad. The live kids voting results show on election night, November 4th. It's going to be on Comcast Channel 9, Verizon 28. And so you might want to watch that. I've done that show for several years. I don't think I'm doing it this year, but it's always interesting to see what the results are. And also, volunteer training. Do we have that slide also? There we go, volunteer training. We had it up before, but you might want to take a note of it again. Thursday, October 23rd, 6 to 7 p.m. at the Town Hall in the Fitzpatrick Room. Contact is Pat Basler, 344-2711, and you can contact Pat if you would like to volunteer, if you'd like to send money, if you'd like to know how to get to the library. You can contact Pat for any of that stuff, and she'll be happy to direct you or take your information. Very important. What actually happens on Election Day? You get, the kids come to vote, yeah, and you've got volunteers. What are the volunteers doing there?
So when a parent or adult comes in with a young child, or in the case of the high school kids, they can go on their own. They walk into the precinct, any polling place, just as regular voters do, and there'll be signs directing them to the kids' voting tables. So the adults will go to the more official-looking polling places, and the kids will get in line, and it's just the exact same experience. There'll be two volunteer poll workers asking for the child's name. We have an alphabetical list of every child in the school system. If you live in Stoughton but you don't go to Stoughton Public Schools, if you go to a private school or you're homeschooled, you're still welcome to come. We'll just put your name down. We hand them a ballot. They go to one of the little cardboard kids voting booths that we have set up on. We usually have 6 to 7 set up on school desks or a table. They take their pen, they make their mark on the ovals. We showed you what the ballot looks like. We just decided the other night which races were going to be included and the one question that we're going to cover. So they can take as much time as they need to fill that out. Then if they need assistance, generally we try to have the volunteers help them rather than a family member.
Although they're allowed to have a family.
Yeah, certainly they're allowed to, but theoretically the family member might be on the other side of the cafeteria or the gym voting at the same time. And then they bring their ballot back, they put it in a cardboard ballot box, and they get a little sticker that said, "I voted." And then and they'll get
give those out to grown-ups.
They'll get a free pencil or two, and I think they get some bookmarks. So, you know, they walk away with something, and they hopefully they will have had a good experience.
It sounds like a lot of fun. It really. What do the student volunteers do? Do you know?
I personally have never volunteered before, but this year obviously I'm planning on doing it. I've always just gone to vote, so I've always been involved, just not in this particular manner.
One of the things we really try to manage is the sound level and nobody running around causing chaos, because we are only allowed to do this based on the good will that we have with the town clerk and the official voting process. So if kids voting got out of control, so a lot of the volunteers might be managing the line. Sometimes if you go to like the Gibbon School, which has 2 precincts, you could drive up at 5 o'clock and there could be 2 lines all the way out to the parking lot. So you want to have the kids stay in line.
They have a separate line for kids, or is it?
No, well, yeah. Once they get to the doors, the kids voting kids go in one direction, but there's 2 precincts in one space,
Yes,
so that means there's 4 lines. So it can be chaos. So we really want to reduce the sound level and the running around, because we really don't want.
Imagine how much chaos it would be if there were all 8 precincts voting in one location.
Well, you'd have to do it at a bigger space. I mean, I think like in Sharon and Easton, they do the high school,
Yeah.
and you have a very large gymnasium or something.
Maybe at the new Stoughton High School.
There you go.
Could be a
When we get the new Stoughton High
larger
School, maybe
space.
they'll
Usually live
plan for
That's
that.
another show too, though.
There you go. But it is an option. It does require more management of 8 locations versus less. But the positive side of the 8 locations is I think it's probably much easier for people who live in those neighborhoods. It might be easier for elderly people. People can walk to them.
Yep. Now these questions are things that we've already discussed, so I guess we've pretty much covered. Anything else you'd like to say about kids voting and why you like it and why you love it and why it's necessary and we should keep doing it?
Well, I mean, I've been sort of beating around this bush all afternoon, but we're fortunate to either live in a town or work in a town that has a program like this. And Sharon, who I think Sharon Fradkin has been the driving force behind kids voting since day one, and she keeps the rest of us in line. And we're lucky to have her, because without her we wouldn't have this program, and we would be like all the Plymouths and the Quincy's and all the other towns that had this at one point in time and have let it go for various reasons. So we're lucky to have it at the high school. We're lucky to have it. We appreciate it, and hopefully we continue to grow it.
Do you think, I know that most of the towns in Massachusetts that had kids voting have, for one reason or another, dropped it, and Kids Voting Massachusetts, which used to have an office, kind of doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Do you picture this kids voting expanding again, or is it on its way out?
I have no idea. I'm not really good at reading the tea leaves like that.
Uh-huh.
So.
How about you guys? You think you'd want to help expand kids voting once you're out of high school?
Obviously, we're really excited to be on the committee this year, but of course it's a a wish of ours to keep it going and having future generations have the same experience. So we're excited.
So I can tell my wife that you want to take over as chairman?
Not just yet.
She does have Lynn Jardin, who's
Yes.
the principal of the, is it the Gibbons, as the co-chair this year. And that's very nice that somebody, especially somebody from the schools.
But we have to see our grandchildren every now and then, you know?
But to have somebody, I mean, John has been a partner for a long time from the high school. To have Lynn on the committee, who was the fellow before you? He was wonderful.
Al Flynn.
Al Flynn. He was a driving force behind it initially, and Tony Sarno. And I mean, it really always has had. And the initial town clerk, I think, was Jean Fleming.
Yep. A lot of support.
Yeah, you know, I've talked to librarians and friends in other towns who have tried to get it off the ground, and if you don't have the support of the town clerk and the town in general, it's really impossible. Especially now that there is no real official state kids voting. I mean, we run it on a shoestring, and luckily, people can't say no to Sharon Fradkin. So, you know, we're all still showing
I can
up.
vouch for that.
Yeah. But that we're very lucky that way, and I think Stoughton is really fortunate to have devoted volunteers who keep these kinds of things going.
We are fortunate to have had you guys here with us today, and you were concerned about being able to fill the time, and here we are, just about out of time. I want to thank our guests, Pat Basler, John Gallivan, Daria Musatova, right? Is that
Yep,
right?
you're good.
Musatova.
Yep.
And Nicole Baudette. We got some announcements to make for you. First, before they play them, I want to remind you anyhow, to vote on Tuesday, November 4th. It is really, really important that you vote. Why? Because it isn't we, the people, without your vote. You're not part of it if you don't vote, so that's important. We have a few announcements now. Here's Gary LaPierre.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society, yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662. Or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Marks Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum showtimes in Easton. Mondays at 9 p.m., Tuesday at 8 a.m., Wednesdays 3 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. And that too, Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 22. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
Support Our Library Association Incorporated, SOLA. And that is at the library, of course, 84 Park Street, Stoughton. And you can find out more about SOLA at solastoughton@gmail.com is their email address, 781-341-0856. Tell us a little bit about what SOLA does.
So SOLA is a friends group that Dory Frankel and Sharon Fradkin and a couple of other dynamic people in town are on the board of. And they were created a couple of years ago when we were applying for a state building construction grant to expand and renovate the library. And one of the things the state wanted was to show that we had some sort of community support, such as not a fundraising group, not a foundation, but a fundraising group. And so they have taken on the task of doing one big fundraiser a year, and it's been this Murder at the Library play.
That is so much fun. I don't know
hilarious.
if our viewers have ever seen that. That is just such a fun. You ever go to that? I have a murder mystery, and they act it out in front of you, and the parts are all played by noted Stoughton people. I mean,
Policemen and superintendents and principals, and it is hilarious.
and very often playing roles that are similar to what they do. I mean, like you'll have a policeman playing a policeman.
But it's like it's sort of a murder mystery, sort of on the spoof idea of Miss Marple and those kinds of things. It's like Clue. Did you ever play the game Clue? It's really like that, and nobody can act. People are actually reading the script. This is not fine acting, but the lines are hilarious, and it's a great fundraiser. And they have just scheduled the third one for Saturday, January 24th at the Temple on Central Ave. And it gets sold out within weeks of them starting to advertise. It should be really fun this year. We have a selectman. I think Dave Souza is going to be on it. Mike Hammond from SMAC, who I think actually can act. A retired English teacher, beloved in town, John Dennison, is going to be in it. Maggie Rizzi, the superintendent of schools, always.
She plays guitar or bass.
Oh my God, she's
great
very
musician.
Very good. Yeah,
very
We're very lucky to have her. Anyway, it's a cast of characters, literally. Terry Schneider from the Chamber is in it this year. Karen Hall from the Youth Commission and the Council on Aging. I know I'm missing some people, but it should be very funny.
I sprung that on you, so
did.
I understand why you may not be totally prepared. That's reasonable. Get any more announcements, Roy? Okay, it's Stoughton Farmers Market that my wife is also involved in. First Parish Universalist Church, right there on the church green, 790 Washington Street, downtown, across from the theater. Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a non-profit, volunteer-run farmers market. It's not like the one across town that is a for-profit operation brought to you by a store. Now through October 25th, rain or shine, the Lane Gardens Farm, O'Brien's Bakery, Fresh Catch Seafood, and much, much more, and live music. So stop by, it's a good take. A lot of fun, very enjoyable. And volunteer training, as we told you before, on Thursday, October 23rd. Show up if you want to volunteer, and they'll be happy to have you. You're volunteering for a 2-hour stretch on one day. That's it. You are not signing your life away. You are not going to be asked to be president or anything else. So, drop by. It's at the Stoughton Town Hall. You all know where that is. It's right across the street from, I don't know, some paint store, I think. Election day once again, Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. Polls open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The kids voting is from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you're going to bring your kids, come after 2. Otherwise, be sure you're there. Don't let the rest of your town down by not participating in who's going to represent us and make the laws that we live with and provide the services that we live with. It's really important. And finally, that's it? I guess that's it. Yeah. No more announcements. We have a thought for the week. And this one comes from a guy who apparently knows a lot about winning elections. His name was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. You know who he is, right? Yeah, he was. I know his grandson. He's a nice guy. Nobody will ever deprive American people of the right to vote, except the American people themselves. And the only way they could do this is by not voting. It's that simple. We in the United States of America have rights and privileges and freedoms that are not shared by any other country in the world. And it's up to us to keep that going. It's not up to somebody else. The government is not they. The government is we. We, the people. And I hope that our viewers today will really pay attention to that thought and understand that it is important that you vote and it is important that you show up. Otherwise, you have no right to complain. Thank you very much for being with us. Guess nothing much else to say, but thank you for doing what you do in this town, not only for kids voting, but for all of the other things that are involved. My wife was remarking the other day that it seems like the same people show up for everything, and it's true. There is a small percentage of the people in this town who volunteer for everything. And if you're watching this program and you'd like to volunteer for something, please do. Anything. There's a lot of things that you can volunteer for. Been watching Community Forum. My name is Steve Fradkin, and I appreciate your watching. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.